Bali Maharaj and Vamana pastime from Vamandev's perspective. How his actions seem immoral, but they are actually transmoral. Today, we'll discuss from the perspective of Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj's life is quite remarkable, and I will quickly over here go over the significant stages of his life before we move on to today. So I'll talk about Bali Maharaj, how he's apparently a villain, he's a devta, he's asura, he's a demon, but he actually acts as a hero. His villainous heroism. Then I'll talk about his glorious decision in rejecting Shukracharya's advice, instruction, warning, whatever, and then how he received a glorious benediction from Vamanadev. So if we look at his life as a as a anti-god, there are gods and the anti-gods. So okay, so this story goes back right to the start of the 8th canto, where initially he's so powerful that he defeats he, he defeats the demons, devtas, and the devtas go to Vishnu, and then they churn the ocean and they get the nectar, and then at that time the asuras would have got the nectar, so the Lord intervenes. So we'll just get a background of how powerful Bali Maharaj is and how many times the Lord has to intervene to save the devtas. So the Lord intervenes as Mohini Murti first, and then gives all the nectar to the devtas, and then the asuras get angry and attack. And although the devtas have drunk the nectar and asuras haven't, still the asuras led by Bali Maharaj are so powerful that he starts crushing the devtas in the battle. And then again Vishnu appears. Vishnu has appeared multiple times. He's appeared as Mohini, he has appeared as Kurma, he's appeared as Mohini Murti, he has appeared as now in the warfield in the 400 Vishnu form. And then he starts killing the demons. And seeing Vishnu's presence and remembering the divine powers that he has, at that time, he is at that time defeated by Indra. So that's the next part over here. He's killed by Indra, but he's brought back to life by Shukracharya after that. So now, this was not just like falling unconscious, but he actually been killed. And when Shukracharya brings him back to life, Shukracharya asks him to perform the Vishwajita Yajna, by which he becomes extremely powerful. So in some way, in the Western tradition, there's a story of phoenix. Phoenix is like somebody who rises from the ashes. So Bali Maharaj is literally like a phoenix. He's not just, he's risen from a corpse back up again, and he rises to become a world conqueror. So the Vishwajita Yajna, Vishwa means universe, Jit means conquer. So Vishwajita Yajna is performed by those who want to conquer the universe. So he conquers it all. And then he conquers heavens unopposed, because the devtas know he's become so powerful, there's no point in fighting with him. So they just flee. And then Vamandev appears. So again, after he gains this power, he performs yajna and welcomes Vamana, and he offers charity. And that's when we ask Vamana says, give me 3 steps. He says, you ask for more than 3 steps. But then Vamana says, no, 3 steps are enough for me. So then at that time, Shukracharya intervenes and says, do not give charity. This is Vishnu, he will destroy you. So now at this point, actually, we have to understand, when he rejects Shukracharya's advice, what a big thing he's doing. We'll come to that little later. But broadly, that's what happens. And then after that, he loses everything to Vamana, because he loses his kingdom, he loses his prestige, he loses everything. Then he's arrested by Vamana's agents, and arrested and humiliated in front of his own citizens and war soldiers. And at that time, instead of getting angry and fighting back, the demons want to fight against it, but he tells them that time is unfavorable, don't fight. And then he offers profound prayers to Vamandev. saying that your mercy is inconceivable. Normally people are chastised, but nobody has chastised anyone the way you have chastised me. And then finally, he's rewarded Sutala with Vamana as doorkeeper. Sutala is among the hellish planets, but it is considered more prosperous, more powerful than even the heavenly planets. So that's how this is the whole story. Now, you see that in everybody's life, there is a trajectory that people follow. Say, if some normally person grows up, gets some education, then gets a job, then settles down, that's a normal trajectory of a life. So like that, the Devata, the Asuras have particular trajectory. The demons, their trajectory is what? Say, the Devatas may do a religious activity, like say performing austerity, but for an anti-religious purpose. Hiranyakashipu performs severe austerities, Ravana performs severe austerities. There the austerities usually are going to a secluded place and sitting in meditation, which is tapa. But here what Bali Maharaj does is yajna. And yajna, dana, tapa, all three are considered to be means for gaining power. And Bali Maharaj gains power by doing yajna under the guidance of Shukracharya. So he's especially indebted to Shukracharya. Normally when somebody does tapa, it is their own endeavor, although it might be guided. Like Dhruva Maharaj was guided by Narad Muni how to do austerity. But there's no specific description that say Ravan or Hiranyakashipu took guidance from a particular demon from a particular Brahmana about how to appease the Devatas. In this case, the yajna was done under Bali Maharaj. Yajna by Bali Maharaj was done under the guidance of Shukracharya. So he was typically quite indebted to Shukracharya. Then after gaining great power, he starts terrorizing the gods. And then the gods, realizing that we are no match to him, they seek Vishnu's intervention. And then the surprise twist comes up. What is that twist? The demon actually behaves not like a demon, but turns out to be better than a god. So this happened earlier in the 6th canto, where Vritrasur turned out to be a great devotee. And something similar happens over here in the case of Bali Maharaj. But it's even greater twist because here the Lord directly intervenes. In the case of Vritrasur, there's no intervention of the Lord. There's just a dramatic shift in consciousness. Then, and this is where the question comes up. Bali Maharaj was fighting against the Asuras. Bali Maharaj was fighting for the Asuras against the Devatas. Where did he suddenly get the consciousness to start offering prayers to Vishnu, saying that your mercy is so glorious and all that? So what happened exactly? So that's what we look at. So he was a hero in the sense that he was a great, very powerful warrior, but he was a villain in the sense that he was fighting against he was fighting against the Devatas. So now let's look at the courage involved in his decision to fight against to go against the advice of Shukracharya. So initially it seems that he was acting out of the desire for honor and fame. Generally, when someone does something virtuous, there are two aspects to it. One is to gain some prowess. Somebody might do yajna to gain some prowess. Secondly, they might do yajna to gain some fame. So he seems to be wanting fame over here. So it's honorable Kshatriya virtue. And Krishna also talks about this to Arjuna when he says that for Kshatriyas, for honorable people, Maranad Sambhavita Sachakirtir, Maranad Richyate. So dishonor is worse than death. So they strive to be honorable at all costs. Then you have, was there arrogance to some extent in his charitability? He says that one who gets charity from me should never ask, shouldn't need to seek charity from anyone else. That's why he says to Vaman, ask more charity, ask what do you want. Don't ask for something so small. So that seems to be a little bit of arrogance. Now what are we discussing here? That why did he stick to giving charity even when Shukracharya warned him? What was the process by which it changed his heart. How did his evolution take place? That's what we are trying to probe over here. So one we could say he wanted fame so much that he felt that, okay, if I've given my word of 3 steps, then even if it's Vishnu and even if he cheats me, still I will gain the honor of being charitable. So maybe that could have been his motive. Let's try to analyze it further. That if we consider, does charity, now at one level, he had the faith that if we give charity, it will lead to prosperity. Srila Prabhupada talks in his purports about how when we give charity, it comes back to us manifold. So if we give it to an ordinary person, certain amount of charity comes back. If we give it to a Brahmana, maybe 100 times comes back. These are not mathematical. They're or rather, these mathematical figures are not necessarily to be taken literally. They're indicative that what we give in charity will come back to us. So what we give to the Lord will become an eternal asset for us. So often the example of a bank account, of a multi-life bank account or eternal bank account is used. So was he thinking in those terms that if I give charity, it will give me back, it will give me prosperity in future? So Yajnadana Tapa in this sense are like technology. The technology for gaining power, just like in the Second World War, whether it is the Allies or the Axis powers, both of them had their scientists. Both the countries, both the Allies and the Axis, they were funding their scientists so that they would develop weapons and that would give them power. So similarly, whether the Devatas or Asuras, for them, the Brahmanas are like their scientists. And they do Yajnadana Tapa. So now whether they are doing it for a virtuous purpose or a vicious purpose, that depends. But just as scientists develop weapons, somebody may use it for preventing war, somebody may use it for inciting war. So Yajnadana Tapa are like that. So now was he thinking that I'll get power and prosperity, because of that I'll give charity? So even if right now it seems to go wrong, still I'll give charity. So was the charity the motive? But then we see, if it was simply charity, then he knew that all this was coming for Brahminical power of a Brahmana. Then why would he reject that Brahmana himself? Why would he reject Shukracharya? So initially when Shukracharya told this was Vishnu, don't give him charity, he'll steal everything from him. Shukracharya also gives reasoning saying that actually to reject the words of to not honor one's words in extreme situations is perfectly fine. So did he not want to lose fame of being charitable? Yeah, that could be some reason. That's what he seems to say at that time. It's better to retain one's fame than to retain than to lose fame and retain and stay alive. So that is the reason he gives. But is that the complete story? Now, even then, whatever be the reason, his rejection of Shukracharya is remarkable. It's courageous because Shukracharya was he was a person to who had given him his life and wealth. Now, it's literally, Shukracharya had been dead and he brought back the life to him, brought him back to life, and then had given him the universe. So it was a principled no. It is described in the Bhagavatam that that Bali Maharaj thought deeply and then decided to reject Shukracharya's instruction. And this is where we can draw a significant comparison between Bali Maharaj here in the Bhagavatam and Karna in the Mahabharata. See, Krishna also approached Karna for something, and Vamana approached Bali for something. And let's see what we can learn deeper about this pastime through this comparison. So we can look at the Karana, we can look at Bali Maharaj. So what was the nature of assistance? Who had given that assistance? It was Duryodhana who had given the assistance. He was a Kshatriya, and Bali Maharaj was Shukracharya had given the assistance, was a Brahmana. Now Kshatriya power can be countered by other Kshatriya power. So Karna could counter Duryodhana's power. But Bali knew that Brahmana's power is so great that it's not so easy for a Kshatriya to counter that. So in that sense, Bali Maharaj was putting himself in greater danger. Now when Krishna made him an offer, Karna, he said that, come to the Pandavas' side. That would have reunited him with his family, he would have got glory by being united with that family. and would have made him prosperous, because he would have been kicking, even heading even Yudhishthira and Arjuna, all the Pandavas. In the case of Bali, if he accepted the Lord's offer, there was a possibility that the Lord may take everything away from him, it, and then it would affect him and his family adversely. So, in a sense, Krishna's offer to Karna, there was hardly any danger. Vamana's offer to Bali, there was some danger. So, then Karna is actually, his loyalty was misdirected. It was because he considered his word to his brother, to Duryodhana, very important. Now Bali also had a loyalty to the Devta, to the Asuras, because he's born in the Asura family. But then at that, he had loyalty to Shukracharya, because Shukracharya had given him so much prowess. But then he realized that when Vishnu comes, there is a higher loyalty over there. So he turned away and he gave to Vishnu. Now, if you consider what he was losing, Karna had got just one small kingdom, one region of India called the Angadesh, whereas Bali had the whole universe in his prowess. So what was at stake was also far greater. Then the consequence of that was Karna, he rejected Krishna, and then eventually in the battle, his sons were killed, he lost his kingdom, he lost his life, he lost everything. But Bali, he also lost. He lost his kingdom, he lost his position, he was arrested, he lost everything temporarily, but then regained everything, and he regained the Lord of everything. He gained the Lord, as we'll discuss later. So the lesson broadly we can say is that Karna rejected the Lord's instruction and he destroyed himself thereby. Whereas Bali Maharaj rejected the Lord's offer. So rejecting here it's not the Lord's offer, I'm sorry, rejecting the Brahmana's words, rejecting one's promise elsewhere, and honoring one's word to the Lord, what it leads to is, may trouble one temporarily, but it will lead to eternal benediction. So that is, we can see the contrast here in their choices. So sometimes a particular situation is best understood by placing it in the light of similar situations. So that's what we are trying to do over here. Now, so this was his courageous decision. Even Karna, he knew that he had a prophetic dream indicating that he was going to die, but still he didn't have the courage to choose Krishna's side, choose the Pandava side, choose the side of virtue. But here Bali Maharaj did that. And then what was the benediction that he got by that? So before we go into that, so he took this courageous decision, but what exactly caused it? What was it that transformed him? This is especially relevant for all of us to understand also, because some of us may have come at a particular stage in our spiritual journey, and we may be practicing with a particular level of seriousness, or we may be having friends, family, acquaintances whom we are trying to help on their spiritual journey, and they may be not taking up at all or taking up very sporadically, and we may be pushing them. So what makes someone serious about spiritual life? What makes them choose the Lord over the world? So sometimes we may feel that I preached and made this person a devotee. Well, it's not that simple. That we may have been speaking for a long time, and why at a particular time that thing happened affect the person. So there are multiple factors, and our offering a connection to Krishna for them, a path to connect with Krishna for them, is just one of those factors. So now what spiritualizes someone at a particular point, that is difficult to say. Let's look at the Bali Maharaj. So at one thing we could say, it was, although he was born in a demoniac family, the whole family wasn't demoniac. In that family there was an extraordinary virtue and devotion of Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj's goodness was there, and his good wishes were also there. That means he had his own nature, innate virtuous nature. And then after him, Virochan had become the king, and Virochan was virtuous but still demoniac. And then Bali Maharaj had also been heroic, but he had been demoniac. Now, Prahlad Maharaj had fervently been hoping that he would become a devotee. We see that sometimes what happens is that everyone around us, maybe our colleagues, our friends, they may take up bhakti by our efforts to some extent at least, but sometimes our close family members don't take up. Then that creates an emptiness in the heart, that creates a sense of failure. So for Prahlad Maharaj, it was like that. Hiranyakashipu didn't get transformed, and none of his, although many of the demons started practicing bhakti, or demons' children started practicing bhakti in the Gurukul, but eventually none of his immediate family members actually started practicing bhakti. They remained demoniac. So Prahlad's son, Prahlad was a great devotee, but his own son Virochan, no, he was not exactly a devotee. He was virtuous. He was ready to sacrifice a lot to give charity, but that doesn't make him exactly a devotee. So naturally, there is that hope, there is prayer, that fervent longing that those close to us, even biologically, that they also become devotees. So Prahlad Maharaj's good wishes were there at one point. Then Vamande was pleased by his faithfulness. Now, whatever be the reason that, that why Bali Maharaj honored his word, but he honored his word. And yena kena prakarana mana Krishna niveshayat, as we say, somehow the fixed mind on Krishna, akama sarvakamo va moksha kamo daradi tivrena bhakti yogina yajita purusham param. With whatever desire, worship Krishna seriously. So Bali Maharaj did take a significant step toward offering himself to Vamandev by rejecting Shukracharya's counsel. So was it that the Lord's pleasure transformed his heart? Was it Prahlad Maharaj's goodness that transformed his heart? When he was arrested at that time, Brahmaji offered prayers, offered good wishes. Brahmaji said that, please don't punish him like this. Normally it is said that somebody offers you even a little bit of a little tulsi leaf, you become satisfied by that. And here he has offered you the entire kingdom, entire universe, and instead of being satisfied, you are arresting him. Please don't do like this, Brahmaji says. So Brahmaji's good wishes were there. So what was it that transformed him? Now the most remarkable, so what happens is the Bhagavatam is in some ways subversive. Subversive means that whatever is the natural trajectory of authority, the Bhagavatam often goes against that. So what are the we'll see the subversion throughout. The Bhagavatam says we have Ambarish Maharaj, who is Kshatriya, and Grahastha shown to be much more powerful than Durvasa Muni, who is a Brahmana and a sannyasi. So here what happens is rejection of the ultimate authority. In this case, it is the authority of the Guru itself. Now, so for the sake of the Lord, everything can be sacrificed. So that everything can be sacrificed, the Bhagavatam shows how Prahlad Maharaj sacrifices his father. He turns away from his father. The gopis turn away from their family members. The Yajnik Brahmana Patnis, they turn away from their husbands. So there is various levels of turning away from the world for the sake of the Lord. But what does one think about, say, turning away from the Guru to turn toward the Lord? Now, as I said, it is so that there are rituals, and the rituals are important, but the rituals come in the way of helping us become spiritual, and the rituals are ineffectual, and then they have to be rejected. So that subversiveness, don't just, okay, you have to respect your father, you have to respect your authority figures, you have to respect your Guru, but why? It is so that we can go close to the Lord. So that Bhagavatam repeatedly subverts conventional hierarchies so as to dramatically drive home the point of focusing on the ultimate purpose. So now, of course, some devotees may point out that actually Shukracharya was not exactly a guru; he was simply a priest. He was not a spiritual teacher. That's true, but now what is the difference between priest and guru? The priest usually teaches rituals for material benefits. Okay, you do this and you will get this desire will fulfill. You do this and that desire will fulfill. Whereas the guru shares insights and practices for spiritual elevation. Now, for the demons, the priest is like their guru. For those who are materially minded, they are not really interested in spiritual elevation. Whatever they have got by the, even if they go to a guru, they will go for material benefit to a guru. So for them, material benefits are all that matter. And in that sense, the person who, so we might technically make a difference that Shukracharya was actually more a priest than a guru, but from Bali Maharaj's perspective, he was actually rejecting the person who had who had demonstrated incredible power to deliver success for him. So in that sense, it was a remarkable rejection. So, and that rejection cost him severely. What did it cost him? It cost him, it was cursed by his own guru. He was arrested, humiliated in front of his own soldiers. He was dishonored. Although he had been honorable, he had honorably stuck to his word, and still he was dishonored, and it was even at great costs. So now this brings us to the point that to understand what the Lord is doing, we need to focus on sight, not on insight. We need to focus not on sight, but on insight. That Bali Maharaj, if how the action of Vamandev seems would be, it is malevolent. You come and ask for charity, and then you give a discourse on satisfaction, and then you deceive. It seems treacherously malevolent. That's what eyes will see. So what we see with the eyes is sight, but what we see with knowledge which we have heard from the ears, that gives us insight. So for growing spiritually, we need not just sight but insight. So how the action is seen through insight is that actually Vamana was being extraordinarily benevolent. What was the benevolence of Vamana? What is Bali Maharaj's realization? That greater than all wealth is the Lord, for he is the source of all wealth. So losing everything to gain him is a gain, not a loss. It's a gain. So interestingly here, what happens is Vamana defects. Now defects here doesn't mean a fault. Defection means shifting from one side to another side. So how does Vamana's defection take place? What happens is that he appeared on Indra's side because Indra's mother Aditi had prayed, and then what happened? He stayed by Vamana's side. He became the doorkeeper for Indra. So for Vamana, so Indra got the heavens, but Vamana got the Lord of the heavens. So what exactly transformed Vamana in Bali Maharaj? It is ultimately impossible for us to know what transforms. And the Acharya's commentaries are also not very clear that this is one factor. Many factors come together, but it's this miraculous transformation that happens at one particular point. And that's why when we see somebody getting transformed, we shouldn't be too hasty to take credit. I made this person into a devotee. Yes, we did that, but why did it work for this person, not for so many other people? And why did it work for this person at this time? We just one factor in a multiple set of factors that lead to people's transformation. So now Vamandev took this position of being the gatekeeper of Bali Maharaj. Now why gatekeeper particularly? The idea was that I stole from you, no one else ever will. So no one else will come close to you to steal from you. That is the idea, that is the underlying import of that particular action, that particular choice. And the benediction that he gave is what we learned is the Lord's plans for are bigger than both the gains and the losses that may come while pursuing our own plans. So we can make our own plans, but we're ready to make room for the Lord's plans, whatever they may be. So so that's what we can learn from this pastime, that the Lord has far bigger plans for us than what we have. So I'll summarize. I spoke today on the topic of Bali Maharaj's evolution, and in that I spoke about how three things. Firstly, okay, I don't need to screen share now. So I talked about Bali Maharaj's trajectory of life and how his rejection of Shukracharya's advice was so remarkable, and we discussed how he rejected. And then after that, we talked about how he was benedicted, although he compared him with Charana, and how he was benedicted remarkably. I think it's darshan time, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much.